Yesterday, I brought a piece about the NHS and about the uh, one particular hospital trust that seems to be in court not paying what has been agreed. And this morning, Nick Hume, the CEO, is on Radio 4. I'm going to play what he's saying.
A visit to A&E is not one you really want to make over Christmas, and particularly not this Christmas. Hospital emergency departments have been full to bursting this Christmas, according to a recent poll by the Royal College of Emergency Medicine. Nick Hume is the Chief Executive of East Suffolk and North Essex NHS Foundation Trust and is on the line. Good morning to you, Nick. And I understand you often go in on a Christmas morning. What did you find? What's different?
Yes, good morning. It was extraordinary this year, actually. I've been going to A&E departments for probably 25, 30 years on Christmas morning. And normally you'd expect to find, well, in the past, up to 100 empty beds and certainly one or two wards that would be empty. This year on both of the sites that I'm responsible for, the Ipswich and Colchester hospitals, they were both full. And I've never seen that on Christmas Day. And that gives me real concern about the busiest time that we approach, which is really for the next fortnight, 3 weeks. We've normally got a little bit of capacity, a little bit of a buffer to get into the beginning of January, but with the numbers that I saw, witnessed, and spoken to the teams this morning, it's not a similar situation this morning.
Okay, because there usually be a bit of a lull around this period, with the busy period coming later. So what you've seen yesterday and the day before makes you fear for later on in January.
Yes, it does, because we've seen a flu, more patients with flu coming in at the end of December. That normally happens for the first, second week of January. It's fairly predictable in terms of our seasonal variation planning. But we have been thrown off course a little bit this year, well, quite significantly this year, with the numbers that we've seen coming in prior to Christmas. And indeed, as I say, both departments were pretty full first thing on Christmas morning.
And what's causing it? Is this flu? Is it COVID? Is it norovirus? Is it the quademic people are talking about?
So we're certainly seeing more infections, but I think just more generally, the hospitals are dealing with increasing numbers of elderly patients, people with many comorbidities facing very different diseases all at the same time. We haven't got the infrastructure yet.
Well, all of this is
services and primary care
perfectly reasonable, and it's a very good platform for Nick to explain all that is being done and the changes that are coming forward
outside hospital to manage those patients safely, and so they kind of end up where the only place where the lights from, which is coming into A&E over the holiday period.
So what's going to change? If I look at the front page of The Guardian this morning, there's a report from the Institute for Public Policy Research that says the NHS is at risk of paralysis while it waits for Wes Streeting's 10-year plan for reform. What needs to happen and when?
Well, it certainly doesn't feel like paralysis at the moment. Everybody's working incredibly hard, but there is that sense of waiting for the 10-year plan, which we expect to see published in the spring, which is showing this shift of analog to digital, of hospital to community, and from illness to prevention. But we also know there's a very real challenge at the moment in terms of dealing with the patients we're seeing here today, now, and in the next few years, because it will take years to get the infrastructure, to get the investments, to also change the culture, both of patients
and what he's saying is quite right.
That huge cultural shift of analog to digital, which absolutely we welcome and we look forward to, and we know it will improve care and improve safety and take away mundane tasks potentially, and allow our clinical staff to be more involved at the
That's a pointed point
with patients. But it will take time, it will take investment. In the meantime, we need to make sure the NHS is safe, that people who turn up in A&E who need a bed will find a bed, and if people need primary care, that the investment's there as well.
Okay, Nick Hume, Chief Executive East.
So it's an extraordinary interview, given the fact that the news broke yesterday that Nick Hume was at the heart, was at the centre of a debate about payment that hasn't been made to his staff. And nothing is said in that interview by the interviewer or by Nick Hume about that issue. Instead, it was a puff piece about the need for change, which I think everybody recognises, certainly anybody who's been a patient and anybody who has worked in the wards in British hospitals know that the system isn't working, and much of that is the bureaucracy. And of course, there's a lot to be said for converting from the paperwork to an entirely digital system, which ideally will stretch from the hospitals to the GP surgeries, so that there won't be this constant error between different departments and different hospitals, as indeed I personally have experienced. Not only have I seen a failure in communication between one hospital and another, to my own detriment, but I've also, when I asked for notes from my GP, because I thought the original notes had been splattered with blood and lost, I've since found them, those notes were corrected. So various issues which were reported in the original notes were changed in the notes which are recorded on my patient notes in the GP surgery. And that I find extraordinary, that somebody in the bureaucratic system has the time to go through and correct all the information, change the information. I don't think that can be right. But I certainly applaud the move to an entirely digital system, which can be thoroughly accessed. But at the same time, I think it's important to know what is going on, that people are complaining that they haven't been paid, because that is not an issue that is exclusive to the NHS or indeed to Colchester or wherever Nick Hume is. That is an issue which is central to the last government and the present government's management, where they say they will do something, and then oddly, a year down the line, nothing happens. Nothing has happened. In this case, it's about 6 months. A promise of payment, and 6 months later, payment hasn't happened. And Nick Hume is busy paying people large amounts of money to fill the gap, because the unions are concerned that their members have been cheated. And it certainly looks that way. I would love that issue to have been raised. That issue wasn't raised, and I don't understand why not. Is this more incompetence from the BBC, or what's going on? What is going on? As for the issues about the A&E being filled, and the hospitals being pushed to breaking point, well, I don't think disease and illness respects British holiday seasons. It certainly doesn't respect weekends, which is one reason why it's so important that we have a GP system which works through the week, as it used to. It's not possible to have a health system that only works 5 days in the week. That is not a health system. That is gesture politics.